Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin, amma ba'd. So in continuing discussing the book Bulugh al-Maram by Hafid ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah. So we had completed regarding what he had discussed regarding najasat, regarding izalat and najasat. So he mentioned in that particular chapter 8 hadith regarding ways regarding things that are said to be najasa, and also how to go about cleansing or cleaning of those things that are said to be impure. So we'll be now going to the next chapter that he titles as the next chapter regarding of Bab al-Wudu. So Bab al-Wudu regarding concerning matter that pertains to al-Wudu. So before we read the hadith, that we can somewhat mention what is the introduction regarding this particular Bab. So the author rahimullah Ibn Hajar that he had started this regarding this discussion regarding matter that relates to tahara. So first he started discussing concerning al-miyah, matter that relates to water, as this is a part of concerning al-wudu. So performing of wudu, it is done, carried out with water. So what are the waters that are said to be pure? Those waters are said to be impure, meaning water that we can and cannot use regarding at-tahara, regarding al-wudu and the likes. Then after then, he discussed concerning matter regarding after miyah, that discussed concerning al-aniyah, which are those things, those vessels, those containers or vessels that are used regarding holding of water. So we discuss concerning those type of vessels that are allowed to be used and those that are not allowed to be used. Then he went to third, discussing after then matters regarding najasat. So regarding things that are said to be najas, impure, filth, and also how to go about cleansing of those things. So that's concerning where we had reached regarding this book. Then he will be discussing concerning next regarding Kitab al-Wudu. So al-Wudu. So here concerning Bab al-Wudu or Bab al-Wudu, he mentioned the ulama have clarified regarding for the word al-Wudu that can be pronounced two ways, with waw, with al-Wudu, with ad-Dhamma or with fatha. So with ad-Dhamma regarding al-Wudu, then what is meant by this concerning that with ad-Dhamma mean concerning the act itself, the fi'l. So regarding concerning the act of wudu, it is referred to as wudu. As for what is called what is pronounced as wadu or wudu, then this is concerning that the water. So it's concerning that what is referred to as the water regarding concerning this particular act. So inshallah ta'ala that we'll be now discussing concerning wudu. So wudu, meaning concerning linguistically, it means nadafa. It means concerning nadafa linguistically, and also some of the ulama also mention that it read concerning that also it take on the meaning concerning al-husn. So regarding concerning this meaning that al-wudu, that means al-nadafa, or it means concerning al-husn. So as for what is intended, that's the linguistic meaning. As for what is intended by the word al-wudu regarding concerning the sharia meaning according to the sharia, then the ulama alayhim rahmatullah that they have mentioned regarding as for wudu shar'iyya, it mean ta'abbud lillah bi ghusl al-a'dha al-arba. So they mentioned that what is defined as wudu, it is the person carrying out an act of ibadah, an act of worship, getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the person washing of specific limbs, or they mentioned 4 limbs, ala sifatin maqsus, in a specific way, to be carried out in a specific way. So this is what is meant by wudu. So wudu, ta'abbud lillah, is an act that is done, getting closer, seeking closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bi ghusl al-a'dha al-maqsusa, by the person washing specific limbs, which are arba, and those to be discovered, ala sifatin maqsus, and this act to be done in a specific way. So this is what is said to be wudu. So, and they mentioned regarding concerning the word al-ghusl, they mentioned the word ghusl is used by word at-taghlib. I'll consider that that most of the limbs of wudu, it is something which is washed, as some of the limbs at times that they are wiped, and those things to be covered, which is the head, it is to be wiped. As for the other limbs, then they are washed. So that's concerning al-wudu, and we have mentioned regarding that it is the relationship with this bab and those previous bab and those that will come after, as the author rahimahullah is covering concerning matter that relate to salat. So regarding of the second arkan of Islam, which is salat, then it consists of things that the person have to have in place regarding as prerequisite. Those are things that relates to the salat before the person perform the salat, and also so of those things that relate to the salat, that is of the prerequisite of salat, is the person being in a state of tahara, and that relates to the person washing of oneself, ensuring that the water that is being used, it is something which is pure, suitable to be used. Also, the container that it is used in to carry the water, also it is also suitable. And also if there's any impurities, how to go about removing of those impurity and cleansing of those impurity. So now next it'll be discussing concerning al-wudu. So we had mentioned regarding concern that the ulama, that also that they will mention regarding of those condition of the shurut, which are the conditions, prerequisite of wudu, that of salat. So the prerequisite of salat is regarding at-tahara. And of that tahara, which includes wudu. So he wished now to cover these things. So Islam have discussed concerning many hadith regarding the virtue of tahara, meaning wudu, where Islam mentioned la tuqbal salat, that salat is not accepted. من أحدث, for the person who falls into breaking of their wudu, hatta yatawadda, until they perform al wudu. So that's concerning of the prerequisite of the salat, that a person must be in a state of tahara. And the hadith we have cited, the hadith in the Bukhari and Muslim, and the wording is taken from Imam Bukhari rahimullah. So many hadith regarding concern showing the virtue of wudu. That so then he mentioned in starting this discussion that he mentioned the first hadith. So we'll mention the first hadith that is mentioned here, and then we'll clarify the hadith or discuss the hadith as in the normal practice regarding discussing these hadith, where we discuss concerning the hadith by way of takhrij of the hadith, also by way of discussing concerning the meaning of the hadith, also what can be extracted from the ahkam from the hadith, especially those ahkam that relates to the discussion or the thing that is being discussed. Tafaddal.
Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Chapter 4, wudu, page 28, hadith number 29, narrated Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, if it were not that I would burden my ummah followers, I would have commanded them to use siwak, stick toothbrush, along with every ablution, reported by Malik, Ahmed and Nasa'i. Ibn Khuzaymah graded it Sahih, authentic, and Al-Bukhari mentioned it as mu'allaq, broken chain from the side of the collector, i.e. Al-Bukhari.
So this is the hadith that is mentioned here regarding this discussion, which the hadith is mentioned here. And Abi Hurairah ta'ala anhu, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لولا أشك على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك ما كل وضوء. That I mentioned أخرجه Malik in his book Al-Muwatta, Ahmed, Nasa'i, Sahahu, Ibn Khuzaymah, وذكره Bukhari تعليقا. So this is the hadith that has been mentioned as being the first hadith in covering, discussing the topic regarding al-wudu. So as for what is mentioned here regarding the narrator with Abu Hurairah anhu, that we have discussed or mentioned matters pertaining to the Sahabi before. So Abu Hurairah anhu, one of the Sahabi, who are known to be of the mukthirin, of those who have narrated most of the hadith of the Prophet Islam that have reached us. But we have those who have narrated a hadith upon the Prophet Islam, that of those who have the primary narrator of hadith is this narrator who is Abu Hurairah ta'ala anhu. So we have mentioned regarding his name, Abdul Rahman as-Sakhr ad-Dawsi. So sometime repetition, it helps regarding memorizing. Then he mentioned that the hadith upon the Prophet Islam, where he mentioned, قال رسول الله السلام لولا أشك على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك مع كل وضوء. So as for the takhrij of the hadith that is mentioned here, he mentioned that the hadith rawahu Imam Malik in his Muwatta. So Imam Malik rahimahullah have narrated the hadith in his book Al-Muwatta, and he mentioned the narration in the book of Muwatta of Imam Malik rahimahullah, it is narrated mawqufan. So it is not narrated as a hadith upon the Prophet Islam, but rather it is narrated as a statement of Abu Hurairah. So the narration of Imam Malik, this hadith, it is narrated as a statement going back to the Sahabi, who of the narrator who is Abu Hurairah anhu, who narrates hadith, not per se the statement of the Prophet Islam. We mentioned that an Abi Hurairah ta'ala anhu annahu qal لولا أشك على أمتي, that if not wishing to put difficulty upon my ummah, I would have commanded them to use the siwak while performing each wudu. So he mentioned that that's a statement of himself, not per se a statement of the Prophet Islam, based upon the narration in the book of Muwatta of Imam Malik rahimahullah. Ibn Abdul Bar rahimahullah, of the ulama who have done numerous work around the book of Muwatta of Imam Malik, that when he mentioned the hadith, he mentioned regarding had the hadith يدخل في المسند أي مرفوع لاتصاله من غير ما وجه. That he mentioned that this hadith, based upon what had been stated here, that had the hadith, that this hadith can be included in those hadith that are said to be marfu. So Ibn Abdul Bar rahimahullah, that he mentioned regarding this hadith, can be included amongst those hadith that can be said to be marfu by way of hukum. even though other narrations mention hadith marfu'an. So that's concerning what is mentioned. The other narrators of this book or collectors, that the hadith is narrated marfu'an, meaning go back to the Prophet ﷺ, as in a narration of Ahmad ibn Hanbal in his Musnad, also An-Nasa'i in his book Al-Kubra. So An-Nasa'i rahimahullah, that he narrates his hadith also in his Kubra. Also the hadith is narrated by Imam Ibn Khuzaymah in his Sahih, where they narrate this hadith marfu. So all of these narrators or collectors, that they have narrated this hadith marfu, going back to the Prophet ﷺ, contrary to what has been mentioned by Imam Malik, narrating the hadith going back to the Sahabi mawqufan. So as for this particular hadith, and then I mentioned, so as for the hadith that the ulama, they have graded this hadith to be authentic. So this hadith is considered to be authentic. And also the asl of the hadith I mentioned in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, the asl of this hadith that can be found in Bukhari and Muslim. So when it is stated here regarding concerning that, for example, Al-Halaq in his checking of the book of Bulugh Maram, when he stated this particular hadith, that he mentioned the hadith has been read, and he mentioned that concerning Akhrajahu Malik, Ahmad, Nasa'i fi al-Kubra, Kama fi al-Atraf, Ibn Khuzaymah. So he stated the hadith in Al-Muwatta, Ahmad, Nasa'i in his book Al-Kubra, as Atraf by Al-Mizzi. Then also he mentioned Ibn Khuzaymah, and also he mentioned Ibn al-Barahim in his book At-Tamheed, that also mentioned his hadith. Also the hadith can be found in Bayhaqi. And also the hadith in Bukhari Ta'liqan. Then he mentioned Qultu. Then also, so he mentioned what then he mentioned that Qultu, as for what he has now is additional statement regarding this hadith mentioned. Akhrajahu al-hadith, that hadith also been collected by Bukhari, Muslim, Malik fil Muwatta, Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, min hadith Abi Hurayrata radiyallahu anhu, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لولا أشق على أمتي أو على الناس لأمرتهم بالسواك مع كل صلاة. So this is the narration that is mentioned by others, that they mention that rather than the word wudu, they mention as-salat. So some narration in Bukhari and Muslim regarding this hadith, that Islam, that it mentioned regarding that مع كل صلاة. So it mentioned with كل صلاة. So that's concerning this particular hadith as mentioned here by Al-Halaq. So this hadith, what is mentioned here regarding the narration of this hadith also can be found in Bukhari and Muslim and also others, where in Bukhari and Muslim some narration mentioned in the kulli salatin, and also you'll find other narration mentioned in the kullu salatin, and also some narration ma kulli salat. So you have some narration mentioned in the kulli salat as mentioned by some, and some of the narrators they mention ma kulli salatin. So that's concerning this hadith of several wordings. Some mention wudu and some mention salat. Regarding that, wudu to be regarding al-miswak to be used regarding kullu wudu, every time the person perform wudu. And some narration in the Bukhari and Muslim also say that in the kulli or ma kulli salatin, with kulli salat. So that's concerning in brief. Also mentioned that, and we'll discuss this point regarding mention ذكره al-Bukhari. So part of the takhrij of the hadith, or mention the sources of the hadith, he mentioned Bukhari, ذكره, Bukhari, he mentioned this hadith, ta'liqan, that he mentioned the hadith ta'liqan, which a ta'liq is of those terminologies that are used by the ulama of hadith. That it means, and we'll explain concerning, I mentioned that Bukhari mentioned hadith ta'liqan, that what is meant by this. So ta'liq is one of those terminologies that is used in ilm al-hadith. So you'll find in this book that is called Al-Kafi fi Ulum al-Hadith by Tabrizi rahimahullah, who died 746 al-Hijri, and this is the book that is the takhrij of Shaykhuna Shaykh Mashur ibn Hassan Ali Salman, that he mentioned regarding concerning that when he made with his book, that I mentioned that hadith al-mu'allaq. So taliq is same thing as hadith al-mu'allaq. What is meant by this? He mentioned ما سقط من أوله واحد وأكثر, where regarding concern that's not that there's a breakage in the isnad from the first section of the hadith, which is from the part of the narrator, or the collector of the hadith, and he could have not mentioned more or many or multiple narrators are missing. So which is many or more, one or more multiple narrators are missing from the isnad, from the side of the collector, from the, so to be, for example, from the side of Imam Bukhari, or from the side of Imam Muslim, or others. So that's concerning hadith mu'allaq or hadith ta'liq, where the collector have not mentioned one or more narrators of the hadith. They mention regarding concerning that this particular matter regarding concerning, for example, that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah will say, قال مالك عن زهري عن أبي سلمة عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه الحديث قال رسول الله السلام الحديث. So Imam Bukhari, before that there's others between Bukhari and Imam Malik. So there's other narrators that normally will be between Bukhari and Muslim, but Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he skipped all those people, he missed all those people, he jumped all those individuals, and he went directly to Imam Malik, and he mentioned from there onwards. So that means that, you know, he had skipped those who are there, the beginning of the isnad, and went to someone who's later on. So they mentioned regarding concerning this matter that with Bukhari rahimahullah, they mentioned that regarding concerning that ومثل هذا تعليق regarding concerning Imam Bukhari rahimahullah regarding تعليقات في صحيحين, regarding does this occur, a hadith al-mu'allaqa, are they found in Bukhari and Muslim? They mention it regarding ومثل هذا, an example of this, يعني تعليق كثير في صحيح Bukhari, that you might find that this practice is repeated often in Sahih Bukhari. And I mentioned regarding concerning, so Sheikh Mashur Hassan wafaqahullah, that he mentioned that as for this matter, that you might find that in Bukhari that this may occur 1,341 times regarding taliqat in Sahih Bukhari. So taliqat in Sahih Bukhari, that you might find this may occur in some hadith wal athar upon the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, that they occur 1,341 times. And this would include hadith that goes back to the Prophet ﷺ, also athar, statement going back to the Sahaba, mawquf, and also maqtu', and also after Tabi'een. So at times Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he would skip, mention the full isnad, and just mention a portion of the isnad, going back to the Prophet ﷺ at times, to the Sahaba at times, and also to the Tabi'een at times. So it's occurred, and they mentioned that, but they mentioned that in most part, that Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, when he mentioned hadith that is said to be, or athar that is said to be mu'allaka ta'liqan, in most part it will be mentioned, it was already mentioned, or to be mentioned somewhere else in the book. So Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, regarding ta'liqat, at times he would not mention the full isnad, because the hadith that is being mentioned, it was already mentioned before. So he did not wish to repeat the exact isnad, because it was already mentioned before, or to be mentioned, or the hadith to be mentioned with a full isnad elsewhere in the book. So because of that repetition, it would not mention the complete isnad. So they said overall regard, so at times it would be mentioned elsewhere in the book of Sahih Bukhari itself. They mentioned that overall, of those ones that were not repeated, mentioned elsewhere in the book of Sahih Bukhari regarding mu'allaqat, that you find that over 160 are not mentioned elsewhere in the book of Sahih Bukhari. So of that number of over 1,341, of that number, most of those are mentioned elsewhere within Sahih Bukhari. But with just over 160 are not mentioned elsewhere in Sahih Bukhari. So 160 are not mentioned elsewhere in Sahih Bukhari. Then I mentioned Ibn Hajar rahimahullah, that he came and wrote a book regarding finding an isnad, tracking those isnad, and mention them with their complete chain. So you find Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, so Imam Bukhari, Ibn Hajar, not Bukhari, sorry, Ibn Hajar Asqalani rahimahullah, of the work that he did in Sahih Bukhari, he explained the book, and also he did a book that is this book. So Ibn Hajar Asqalani, he did this book. So this book is also dedicated to Sahih Bukhari. by way of, he mentioned his book, the book is titled Taliq or Tagliq, a Taliq, so Tagliq, a Taliq, so closing those ahadith that are not mentioned, a complete change, ala Sahih Bukhari, that relates to Sahih Bukhari. And this is mentioned, and this book, it is 5 volumes. So you can somewhat trace all the hadith that I mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, that I mentioned with an incomplete chain. He have mentioned all of them in that book, and that book is a 5 volume. So it's a masterpiece, an important book regarding ilm al-hadith, regarding Sahih Bukhari, that a person of hadith, that that they should have this book, and also benefit from this work regarding those ahadith that are not mentioned with a complete chain, that are mentioned in Sahih Bukhari. And also they mentioned in Sahih Muslim about 14, or some mention 12 hadith that also fall into this category, that are hadith that are not mentioned with a complete chain, and of the ulama who did some work about Sahih Muslim, that also this work. So this book is written by by Hafiz Yahya ibn Ali ibn Abdullah, who is known as Rashid ibn Attar, Rashid ad-Din Attar. So he did this work regarding Sahih Muslim. So that's concerning work relating to a hadith, some of the works that relate to Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, and there are many works around Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. So the person who specializes in hadith, or who have an inclination towards ilm hadith, to gather these books, especially regarding Bukhari and Muslim, because of these being the 2 most authentic books of hadith. So going back to what is mentioned regarding concerning the hadith, regarding ta'liqan, then the hadith has been mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim with this wording, but also with other working, with other isnad, with a complete chain. That's concerning this particular hadith. Also, At-Tirmidhi rahimahullah, when he mentioned this hadith in his Al-Jami', regarding this hadith, that he mentioned this hadith also have been narrated by many Sahaba. So you find many of the companions have narrated this particular hadith, or hadith of similar regarding the use of miswak, regarding wudu and the likes. He mentioned of those Sahaba who have narrated similar hadith, he mentioned that is similar to the hadith of Abu Hurairah, mentioned over 17 companions. Amongst them, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Umar, Ibn Amr, Aisha, Hudayfa, Zayd ibn Khalid, also Salama, Abu Musa, Abu Umama, Abu Ayyub, and others. So these are of those companions who have narrated hadith, the similar hadith. So similar hadith narrated by other companions that are over. At-Tirmidhi rahimahullah in his Jami', he mentioned over 17 companions narrating very similar hadith. So this hadith also of as-siwak, the use of siwak, that have been classed as those hadith are said to be mutawatir. So the hadith I discussed concerning the use of siwak. You have so many narrations of hadith relating to siwak that it have been classed as those hadith are said to be mutawatir. We find that many narrations relating to this topic of siwak, the use of siwak. So of those who have mentioned concerning this matter, regarding concerning that of the ulama who have concerning Katani, also Ibn Abdul, also others who have mentioned regarding concerning this hadith, is of the level of mutawatir. So that's concerning the hadith regarding takhrij and what have been said regarding this particular hadith. The next matter regarding concerning the meaning of the hadith and the ahkam to be taken from this hadith. So I mentioned lawla, where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned lawla, that I said that this type of term, or these words, these wording concerning harf al-imtina li-wujud. Al-harf al-imtina lil-wujud. Mean consider the person lawla, if not. So I mentioned regarding concerning to know that can someone making an exception? If this thing occur, then this thing will stop this thing. So concerned to know, Lola, I do not want to make things difficult upon my ummah. I choose not to make things difficult upon my ummah. If so, I will command them to use the miswak regarding each salat. So regarding concerning that even ashaq ala ummati, meaning athqal ala ummati, that Islam mushaqqa, that Islam we did not want to put difficulties upon his ummah. So show that Islam is a deen of difficulties. But concerning at-taysir, at times people may use this as a principle concerning at-taysir, try to make things so easy that they water down Islam, and there's nothing which is, but everything is a green light. So you have those people try to They use this word that they do not want to make things difficult for the Muslim. And these are people who are said to be people of ilm, that they try to make things so simple, so easy, so relaxed, that there's nothing left to be done. Everything, there's a green light. So everything becomes a green light, and you have people who are of this way inclined. Allah musta'an wa alayhi tukhlan. So regarding concerning mushaqqa, that ELAs and the Prophet Islam try to remove things that are difficult, that will be difficult upon this ummah, regarding certain things to be done, or the likes. Then he mentioned regarding ala ummati, that they mentioned regarding concerning as for ummah, that this hadith regarding ummah meaning jama', that is ummah meaning jama', a group of people, and those that are intended by this al-ummah, that the Prophet Islam concerned al-ummah, he has two ummah. They are divided into two groups, ummatul ijaba wa ummatul da'wah. So the Prophet Islam regarding those people that they associate to the Prophet Islam by way of his da'wah, by way of invitation to Islam, that they have two types. Those are ummatul da'wah, they are the one that his message is meant for them, which is mankind and the jinn in general. So the Prophet Islam regarding his da'wah, his message of Islam, it is intended for all of mankind and the jinn. So they are ummatul da'wah. They are the ones that Islam present to them the da'wah of Islam, the call to Islam, the invitation to Islam. These are presented to mankind in general, which is for them to accept the message of Islam and to act according to it. The second ummah, and that will the second of the ummah, are those which is ummatul ijaba. So the second of the ummah, ummatul ijaba, and ummatul ijaba are those who accept the Prophet Islam message and act upon it. They are ummatul ijaba. So they are the ones who have accepted, responded, that they have accepted the invitation by way of the Prophet Islam of Islam. So they are ummatul ijaba, where they believe and also they act accordingly to Islam, where that they carry out his command, the instructions of the Prophet Islam, and they avoid the things that he has forbidden. They are the ummatul ijaba. So who is intended by in this call? We mentioned that the ummah in this case regarding the Muslim. The intent is regarding concerning as salat, wudu, then this is intended to be carried out by the Muslim. So this those who are intended, the ummatul ijaba, those who have believe in him and also follow him and accept the dawah, the message of the Prophet ﷺ. Then I mentioned that he wished to command them regarding as-siwak. So as for siwak, then it's an oud, is a form of like a twig that is used regarding to cleanse of the mouth. So it is a oud, a type of twig that is used to cleanse of the mouth. Like commonly, it is like bought like these. They are said to be miswak. So something like this, or at times they may appear like this. So it's a form of twig that is used regarding something to clean of the teeth. So from this concern, it's referred to as miswak. So used to kind of somewhat to clean off the teeth, which would be the teeth and also the gum and also the tongue. It is used for the cleansing of the mouth. So that's concerning the hadith that is mentioned here. So regarding concerning now the ahkam that can be taken from the hadith, as we mentioned that some narration mentioned ma kulli wudu, regarding concerning that is to be done at the time of wudu. Also some narration mentioned inda kulli wudu, at the time of each wudu, which is both wording are similar in meaning. Ma kulli wudu wa inda kulli wudu, that the meaning are generally similar. That is to be done while performing or during, upon performing of wudu. As for what now can be taken from the hadith regarding the ahkam of this hadith, that one of the things they discuss regarding this hadith, that hukum as-siwak, was the hukum of siwak, and that's the main intent of the hadith regarding the hukum of siwak, especially regarding the time of wudu. So as for hukum as-siwak, the ulama that they mentioned regarding from this hadith and hadith of similar, that the hukum of siwak is something which is mustahab, not wajib. So use of miswak or siwak, it is something which is mustahab, it is something which is preferred to be done, and it is not something which is wajib to be done at the time of wudu or the time of salat or other times. And that's an ijma between the ulama. So regarding concerning that the use of siwak, it is sunnah, mustahab. And that's an ijma between the ulama regarding at that specific time regarding wudu or salat. With the exception of Dawood al-Zahiri, with the exception of Dawood al-Zahiri, that it all concern awjabahu li salat, that it always is something compulsory to be done at the time of salat. So Dawood al-Zahiri is of the view that the use of the miswak or siwak at the time of salat, it is something which is wajib. But he mentioned that لو تركه لم يبطل salat, to the person who does so, his salat is not invalid, according to Dawood al-Zahiri rahimahullah. Also it is stated that Ishaq ibn Rahuya or Rahway, Ishaq Rahuya, that state concerned أنه قال هو واجب. So Ishaq ibn Rahuya, also of the ulama who hold that it is something which is wajib to be done regarding the use of the miswak. Mentioned وإن تركه عمدا بطلت صلاته. So Ishaq Rahuya, he mentioned the one who intentionally misusing the miswak at the time of salat, his salat is batil. So that's according to some of the view of some of the ulama, but overall that jumhur of the ulama, some mention ijma regarding concerning that it is sunnah mustahab to be done. Then I discuss concerning that regarding concerning the use of the miswak, that you have certain times that are said to be more preferred times that the miswak to be used. So you have certain times it is more preferred that the miswak to be used. So of those times that they mention, that one in the wudu, so the miswak is preferred to be used at the time of wudu. A discussion between the ulama regarding the miswak being used at the time of wudu. Is it to be done at the time of wudu? At what point in performing wudu is the person allowed to use the miswak? Is it before the wudu, before starting wudu, or during the wudu? And the time that they mentioned during the wudu is when the person making madmada. So the time of madmada, doing the mouth and the nose, he will do the miswak at that point. So you have those two views. At the time of in performing wudu, at what point is the person allowed and should use the miswak? Of the ulama who take the position should be done before the wudu, and those who hold that it is to be done at the time of madmada, in doing of the nose and the mouth, what is doing of washing of the rinsing of the mouth. But Allahu alam, those who mentioned is more that there's no narration upon the Prophet Islam that he would use the miswak or siwak at the time of madmada. There's no narration. So this hadith is to be taken, that is to be done before wudu, to be done before performing of the wudu. That is what is more correct. That is more correct. And I mentioned the proof of that, the hadith of Ibn Abbas, that when Ibn Abbas anhu, that he prayed the Salatul Layl with his aunt Maymuna, that it mentioned فَاسْتَيْقَظَ, that they got up, the Prophet tasawwak, that he performed a siwak, he used of the miswak, وَتَوَضَّى. So can I sum that I mentioned that as for the sequence of what was done in the hadith of Ibn Abbas regarding the Prophet, that when he prayed with the Prophet during the night, so he woke up, used of the miswak, then وَتَوَضَّى, then he performed al-wudu, indicating that, and this narration is in Sahih Muslim. So it showed that the use of the miswak is not done during the wudu, but before wudu. Not during the wudu, but before al-wudu. Wallahu ta'ala alam. So of those points regarding concerning of those points, that is either recommended for wudu, for miswak to be used, that we state regarding at the time of wudu, the time of salat, so before the salat, so being done at the time of salat, also another time for it to be done. Also when a person have woken up, as in the hadith of, we mentioned Ibn Abbas, when the Prophet woke up, tasawwak, and also use of the miswak, so after getting up from sleep. That's another time they mention in the Kathrat Kalam, when a person speaks a lot. So after wasamt kathir, when a person also either remaining silent, not talking for a long time, going for a long time without speaking, then also it is advisable to use the miswak. Also, if the person kalam kathir, after speaking a lot, also to use the miswak. Another time that is recommended in the qiraat al-Quran with dhikr. So the person who wish to, regarding concerning that engage in reading of the Quran, that also is advisable for the person to use the miswak, which is to clean the mouth before al-Quran. Also, they mention another time regarding that after the person in the akal insan, when the person after eating, so after the person have a meal, then also advisable for the person to use the miswak after eating. So these are concerning of, and also they mention also added to this also after the person did that their mouth can somewhat not that have the odor of the mouth have changed. So the changing of the odor of the person's mouth, then for them to use the miswak as a form of tanzif, as a form of cleansing of the person's mouth. So those are times regarding concern that is advised regarding the use of the miswak. So mentioned all those occasions is something which is mustahab. So it is something mustahab to be done on those occasions, but those are the more of the time the person should be more vigilant regarding the use of the miswak, especially during of those times that we had stated. The ulama have a discussion regarding concerning use of the miswak. Is the miswak considered to be something which is izalat al-adha? So it is something that is to remove of filth or a form of the person considered, or the form of tatahur al-mawt or tibal al-lisan. Is it concerned so? Is miswak considered to be something removing of something of unpleasant things from the mouth, or use a form of as a form of tib on the mouth to make the person to beautify the person's mouth? So which is it? So a khilaf between the ulama. So you have a khilaf between the ulama on that matter, which is regarding that is it removing of things or a form of to cleanse, remove the mouth, and it goes both ways. At times it may be for cleaning the mouth, and at times the way to beautification of a person's mouth. They mention regarding concerning that al-miswak with the Prophet ﷺ, that of the ulama or class that is something which is specific to the Prophet ﷺ, regarding that ﷺ, that even him, the Prophet ﷺ, that even more so upon him to the use of the miswak. So I mentioned regarding that in the hadith of Aisha, so the ulama can somewhat take that of those things which is particular to the Prophet ﷺ, regarding concern is not even for him, more so regarding the use of the miswak, based upon that ﷺ regarding concerning that regarding concerning this matter with the hadith of Aisha Sahih Muslim, where a portion of that he mentioned regarding concerning yabathu Allahu ma sha and yabathu min al-layl, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was sent to him regarding concerning that revelation for tasawwak, for yatawadda. So regarding that revelation will come to him. So based upon revelation come to him that he likes to keep his mouth concerned always constantly clean. Is miswak something specific to this ummah or not? Is miswak specific or something also upon this ummah? It is something, but ulama mentioned that it is not. So miswak is not something which is particularly specific to this ummah. It was something that also was ordained for nations before. So there's nations before also that they were advised regarding the use of the miswak. A matter to discuss regarding the use of the miswak between the ulama, that it is something which is advisable to use at all times. So the miswak that's advisable to be used at all times. Where some of the ulama, they were mentioned that yes, at all times the miswak is allowed to be used, but they mentioned with the exception of the person who is fasting. So regarding concern a person who is fasting, that after zawal, after the sun have reached the pinnacle of his on the day, and then start to lean and start to move and start to set. Then for the person after that time, regarding for dhuhr, for asr, for a person to avoid the use of the miswak after the midday. So after midday, the older person, it is advised for a person who is fasting not to use of miswak. So you have the discussion between the ulama. So those who hold that it can be used continuously, even for a person who is fasting throughout the day, at any point during the day. Some mention that it's the preferable that a person not to use it after midday. After midday, not for the person to use al-miswak. And Allahu Alam, regarding concerning, it can be done at any time. It can be done for the person who is fasting, that it can be done at any point. The discussion next that are between the ulama regarding that, the miswak, is it something to be used with the right or left hand? So the miswak, if clean the mouth, is it the person who uses right or is left hand? So with that, you have a look at this of the ulama who are more inclined toward the miswak to be done with the left hand, and others will mention with the right. So of the ulama mentioned that right hand is a form of tatayyub, as something used as a form to beautify the person's mouth, that it is something that, so they mentioned that if that's the reason, then the person uses right hand. If the person using it to remove things off, to cleanse his mouth, to clean his mouth, then it is done with the left hand, as removing of filth or unpleasant thing in the person's mouth. So if it's used for that purpose, then with the left hand. If it's used as a form of tatayyub, as a form to beautify the person's mouth, then it is done with the right. And Ibn Usaymeen rahimahullah, that more concerned to know whichever way it goes, then right or left, both are instead bab al-wasi', al-amr wasi'. This is something which is open for the person's discretion. So for the Ibn Usaymeen, more inclined that this is something which is open to the person's discretion regarding whichever hand it is used, then there's no blame with the person. There's nothing blameworthy in right or left, but some will make a distinction regarding if it is for things of removing of filth, cleansing of the mouth, then the left hand. If it's for beautification of the mouth, then it is for the right hand. Of the thing that concerning that siwak, they mention regarding concerning siwak, that which type of twig is preferred to be used. Of the ulama mention arak. So they mention arak, type of branch. Some mention zaytun, but there's no zaytun, which is that also that type of twig is preferred to be used. So those things that have been mentioned regarding the olive branch or others, but I mentioned that whatever, so it may vary from one country to another and one place to another. So it may vary from one place to another regarding what is available that is used. So whatever in that region is said to be those twigs that can be used as miswak to clean up the mouth, then the people use according to what is available in their region. But overall, some of the ulama prefer that a person that they use arak branches for miswak that may be found in particular place, which is in the Arab world in particular. But overall, that whatever is used is satisfactory. That also they give precedent that a person also use those ones that are said to be fresh compared to those ones that are said to be dry, as the ones that are dry may bring about harm to the person's mouth, and that's not the intent. So for the person to use ones that are fresh, moist, then those are the ones that are more preferred, are the ones that are to be used, and not the ones that are dry that may cause damage to the person's mouth. Also from this hadith that they discuss regarding concern from the hadith, that it shows regarding that it is preferred for the person to use miswak with wudu and also in the salat, but not wajib. So it is not wajib for a person to use miswak in clean of the mouth before wudu and also before the salat. Then also of those things that they discuss regarding this matter, that they mention regarding concerning the use of the miswak before the salat. Abu Hanifa, Jamhur of the ulama, mentioned it can be that is something which is mustahab to be done before the salat, or masnoon. It is something which of the sunnah to be done before wudu and the salat. But as for the ahnaf, that the Anafiyya, the ظاهر أن Anafiyya لا يقولون بالمسواك in the salat. So the Hanafiya, that they do not, some of the Hanafiya, they do not per se take to the view or have the opinion that a person is to use miswak or siwak before salat. They are not of that opinion regarding that matter, where they mention that they take the hadith in the kulli wudu salat. They mention hadith, I mentioned it, that is more so to be done at the time of wudu, not in the time of salat. So the ahnaf, that they are more inclined, or some of the ahnaf are more inclined towards wudu, miswak being done at the time of wudu, not during the time of the salat. So that's concerning how they, so that's concerning according to that opinion. But jumhur of the ulama, that all that take the view that it can be done at the time of wudu and also before the salat. And that view is a more correct view. From the hadith of the ulama who have extracted from the hadith regarding that, a matter regarding usul al-fiqh and how to understand regarding the text. When I mentioned that, I mentioned, لولا أنشك على أمتي لأمرتهم بالسواك. They mention لأمرتهم. So they mention that Amar, but the Prophet is giving a command, then that is to be understood as something to be carried out, and something is this a must to be done. So the word Amar being commanded, and the person being commanded, being instructed, being commanded to do something, then what is taken from that is that command is to be taken or understood to be something which is compulsory to be done, unless there's some other text to say otherwise, or to remove that ruling. So the command of the Prophet Islam or from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is taken, understood as something which is a must to be done, wajib to be done, unless there's another text that may remove that ruling or lighten that ruling. So in this case, so if I mentioned that, so Islam that had commanded this ummah regarding this matter, based on it show that it's something which is to be taken as something which is wajib, unless there's something to say otherwise. So those are of those points that can be taken from this hadith. Other thing the ulama mentioned regarding the person making of miswak publicly. So a discussion also between the ulama regarding the person using of miswak publicly. So the person in public, outdoors in front of others, the use of the miswak. So of the ulama who owes that it is something which is, the person, it is allowed, but depending on the circumstance. So it's allowed regarding concerning, so especially regarding, and also in certain places you might find that it is something that the person ordinarily that doing it in public is not considered to be something which is looked down upon. And in some places it may be seen as something which is not the more befitting thing to be done, especially the person removing things in his mouth that he wished to remove. So the person doing it by way of removing of things from his mouth, then some hold that it is not befitting to be done in front of others, in public. But if the person is doing a form of talk, kind of somewhat to beautify his teeth, then, or to like to whitening of his teeth, then it can be done for that reason. But so that's concerning those discussion regarding the use of miswak in public and the use of miswak in general. So that's concerning some points regarding al-miswak. So of those things the ulama mentioned regarding that miswak is of those things that relates to of the adab of wudu and of the adab of salat, of the common of those things that are attached to the manner of those things of the etiquettes that relates to wudu, the use of the miswak, and also the use of the miswak before a salat and the other occasion that we had mentioned. So with that, inshallah ta'ala, we will end of this discussion regarding the hadith that he mentioned, the first hadith regarding al-miswak. You have many hadith regarding of the ahkam that relates to miswak. The author only cited one hadith regarding in the bab of wudu to start with as a introduction regarding this point. Then we'll start to discuss regarding other points or other hadith relating to regarding al-wudu, regarding the description, the ahkam that relates to al-wudu, and the upcoming hadith will cover those things. So that inshallah ta'ala will end this session and continue regarding matters relating to ahkam al-tahara, bab al-wudu. With this inshallah ta'ala will end. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذه السبيل والآخر دعونا الحمد لله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.